Okay, now that our camera's all finished, let's add some actual lighting. So I'm going to delete these guys, and then I'm going to move the materials upstream a bit. And let's move the camera too. And we're going to go download an HDRI to use as an environmental light. So you can find this HDRI also at Polyhaven, and it's simply called Secluded Beach. So once you've downloaded that, we can put down an environmental light, just like we have before. And I already have Karma XPU enabled, but if you don't, go ahead and activate that. And then I'm going to click the little icon next to texture to import our HDRI, and I'm just going to double click on Secluded Beach 2K. That's the one I downloaded. And let's go ahead and activate the dome light. See what happens. Okay, so we have some directional lighting, but I can't really see where anything is. So right now it's all kind of nebulous. Let's go up to the Karma tab, and you'll see this little notch right here that says Render Light Geometry. And if you click on it, you can go down to Set or Create. And now we can click Render Light Geometry. And just like that, you can see the HDRI in the background. And actually, it might be easier if we jump out of the camera. So I'm going to make sure I have the lock disabled, and I'm going to zoom back. And let's zoom back quite a bit so we can just see the whole scene. And this is actually a good way to see the directionality of the HDRI. So we can see where the sunlight's coming from. And while we're here, let's up the exposure. Let's try 1. Let's do a little brighter, 2. That feels much more like a sunny day. But let's switch the viewport back to the camera so we can choose the direction of our HDRI. And if that little wireframe under Scoot is bothering you, you can disable the light geometry by clicking this little guy right there. So because this is a spherical HDRI and it is leveled, we only need to adjust the Y to change the directionality of the light. And as you can see, as I manipulate the Y value, the light directionality changes. So I like to just move it around and see if I can find something I like. Very similar to photography. So I think what I want is I'd like to have the light coming from the right side. I feel like this is good because it creates shadows on the left side of his body. So I'm going to lean into that a bit more. Let's try right there, about 121. So let's go back to the first frame and see how it looks. And you can just step through. I like this. We have very strong shadow definition, and it really brings out all the details in Scoot. So let's go through and change the dome light. I'm just going to call this environment. And we already have something called environment, so it's going to have a 1 at the end. That's okay. I'm going to drop down another environment light, and we're going to use this as a fill. So take a look at the difference in the shadows now, before and after. This is essentially just giving you a little bit of fill so that the shadows don't feel as harsh and dark. And what's cool is we can control the color temperature, which is set for Kelvin. And essentially the lower the number, the warmer it is. As you can see here, you can see the shadows start warming up a lot more. And then the higher the number, the more towards cool colors it is. So I'm probably going to stick around, let's say right here. And we can change the effect by increasing the intensity. That's too much. And let's bring it back down. And let's say 0.4. And we can take a look at an A and B. So let's turn it off. And then with it on, it definitely softens things. And you can see it's very little amounts of light. And then over in our scene graph, you see we have both of our lights here, and we can turn them off here as well. So you have many different ways of controlling what's being visualized. And I'm going to show you another little trick that I use to make my images pop. So go ahead and drop down a area light. Now I'm going to use this area light as a means to create an accent across the left side of the crab. Hit Ctrl 2 to split the viewport. And right now I'm having a hard time seeing the directionality. So let's go ahead and crank up the intensity quite a bit. And I'm still not seeing any results. So let me move it over here for a bit. And I'm going to give it a little tilt down and to the left. So the idea is that it's angling from the side. And let's turn it up quite a bit so I can, okay, there we go. Now I can see the results coming in. And I'm going to make it a bit longer and a bit taller, just so it's taking up more area. And just keep moving it until it feels like it's facing him. But if I want to be pretty precise, I can come up here and turn off Karma, and I can look through the light just like that. And this makes it easy to kind of directionalize it. And it's just like operating the camera, so you can just move around. And I think this is about right. So let's go back in and let's look through our camera, and then let's turn on Karma XPU. And I'm going to nudge it a bit more. Let me put the intensity down to 1, and let me turn the exposure up to something crazy. There we go. Now you're starting to see those hits on the left side of his back. But it's a little too intense on the ground too. It looks like we have a reflector or something, as you can see. So one way to fix that is we can actually go in and do shaping. So we can turn on the spotlight mode, and this allows you to change the angle at which it is expressing the light. So let's bring it down and make it a bit more of a spotlight. And let's go down even more. And you can see on the left, you can kind of see the outline encroaching in on the crab. Okay, that's better. And we can also do a little bit of softness just so it doesn't have a hard edge. And now that we know the directionality, let's go ahead and turn down the brightness a bit. So I'm going to go to the base properties and turn the exposure down so it's just not as harsh. And then let's see what that looks like before and after, before and after. We have this nice little hit on the side, so I think that looks good. And it helps separate him from the background a bit more. It's very subtle, but it's there. And then let's slide this over a bit more. I think I want it to be a bit more on his left side. And I know this is probably a bit tedious to watch, but this is lighting. So I'm going to go and let's turn off Karma XPU again, and let's look through the light. And I've completely missed the mark. So let's tilt down a bit. There we go. A little bit more from his left and facing there. And let's go ahead and look through the camera again and turn on Karma. And that looks much better. I know it's very subtle, but I like the way this looks. And I'm actually going to bring the exposure up a little bit more again. So it's a lot of back and forth, but let's flip it on and off to see what it looks like. Yeah, that looks good. And one thing we can do is we have this thing called the diffuse multiplier up here. The diffuse controls the brightness of the scattered base color, whereas the specular multiplier dials the intensity of the sharp reflections. So I'm going to keep the diffuse down, and I'm going to keep the specular multiplier up because that's what we need. And I'm going to click normalize power to bring the original exposure back down. And then I'm going to bring up the specular multiplier to increase the influence it has on the reflection. And you can see how all these little adjustments have kept our original shadows in place, while giving a nice little hint on the left side of the geometry.